Welcome to the Missed Retrospective, where we take the classics and look at them through a modern lens. My name is Kirby Carreon. I am your host here, and I'm here with a man who, quite frankly, I'm going to put it out there on the record, from day one has probably been one of my mentors, somebody who I've learned from, and some lessons that he would be like, Kirby, why do you listen to me sometimes? And they stick with me, even as I get, more seasoned in this business and everything. The lesser known Russo cousin or nephew. You're the nephew, right?
Yeah, the far superior version of, yes.
There you go. Of Vince Russo, the one and only Chris Russo, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Yeah, Kirby, thanks for... And this place is sweet.
Yeah, shout out to the band Barracks here in Houston, Texas. This has probably become one of my favorite places to come record at. Because not only is it soundproof, it's a great studio, and the prices are incredibly reasonable compared to what other people want.
Are they paying you to say that?
No, they're not, but maybe one day. That's how we get sponsorships, little by little. We'll get there. Yeah. But Chris, thank you so much for being here for this podcast episode. Quite frankly, one of those people that I wanted to have on here from the get-go. Just because, your knowledge is something that I don't take for granted. And I think as I'm getting more into these episodes, just getting different perspectives from different time frames of people that watch different products than I did has been quite invaluable in teaching me new things for commentary. So before we get started, before we start talking about the match that we're going to talk about, why don't you let the people know a little bit about yourself, what your past is? That way they can kind of see where your perspective comes from your past.
Yeah. JMU grad, by the way, as at the time of this filming in the college football playoffs, right? And they're going to beat the spread. I'm sure of it. We'll go from there, but go Dukes. I was first exposed to pro wrestling while I was at James Madison. I was a radio DJ for one of the classic rock station down there in Harrisonburg, Virginia for Clear Channel. And there was a promoter by the name of Marvin Ward, and come to find out, obviously, like many people in the wrestling business, they kind of overblow who they were and what they did. But he brought wrestling into the Shenandoah Valley. There was always these spot wrestling shows that he would promote and put on, and he'd bring all these cast of characters, old WCW, old timers, guys from old NWA, and then, indie darlings that at the time I'd never watched independent wrestling. I didn't understand independent wrestling, but, names that you would come to know and appreciate, and you bring them all together. But they needed like a ring announcer, and they would promote and advertise on the radio station that said, is there anybody that's a personality that would love to do it? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I love wrestling, right? I grew up during the Attitude Era, watched actually predominantly WCW growing up. I was more of a WCW fan until like Stone Cold and The Rock were, white hot. But I was part of that, and I never kind of fell out of love with it. But I was like, dude, this is awesome. Let me be the ring announcer. And so I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I did a lot of that for a couple of years while I was in college. And this guy was running kind of spot shows through those years that I was there. Moved to Florida for grad school at the time. My now ex-girlfriend, but my girlfriend at the time was going to school with referee Scott Wheeler, who's now a referee at the NWA. They were going to school together, and he was like, and she told him about my passion for wrestling, this, that. And he said, hey, if he's interested in doing anything wrestling, I'm at a school down here in Florida, which is where I ended up moving to for my grad school. She was there too. Come down, go meet a guy named Off of the Wild Samoan. And that's really where I got my real wrestling training from. Ended up learning how to wrestle, got in the ring, got my training in, but I ended up being like a Joey Styles for his promotion. He had a promotion he'd run, and I was the one-man booth, one-man commentator.
That's tough.
Yeah, a lot of respect, right,
yeah.
for what Joey Styles did, and to do that and be able to tell his story and whatnot. Long story short, right place at the right time, got connected with the right people. They were looking for commentators, they being the WWE, pronouns, pal, pronouns. They being the WWE, they were at the time maybe looking for some new commentators, some fresh, for opportunities. Right place, the right time. Did a lot of bugging, the WWE. Had a couple of tryouts. Did a lot of bugging for like a whole year. Hey, you told me to keep reaching out. Here's new material, this, that, the other. Finally, they reached out and said, yeah, I think we have something for you now. After a year of bugging. Was with the WWE for a year. Down at FCW, which then became kind of that new iteration of NXT at Full Sail. So that 2011, 2012 timeframe. Was there for a year, got released from my contract, and then went back to office for a couple of years. My real job then actually brought me out to Houston. And I'm like, man, I'd love to like continue with this wrestling thing. I wonder who's out here. I find Reality of Wrestling. I call the number on the screen, and it's Booker who picks up. And Booker's like, "Hey, what's going on? You know, what can I do for you?" Told him about my background, what I'd love to do. He said, "Come on down." And I've been with Reality of Wrestling since like January of 2016, right? So, man, we're going on almost 10 years now as of the time of this filming, which is incredible to be with the promotion. Like, started with one Hall of Famer, go to the WWE. Now doing commentary, color commentary for another WWE Hall of Famer at, you know, arguably one of the best independent promotions, right? One that the WWE considers an ID school. And like, it's a semi-charmed kind of life that I've fallen into. It's just a series of just right place at the right times to make the move. And sorry, that was a really long answer to your short question. No, that's good.
Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I just do this." I was like, no, like, tell me more. Because I've actually never known your whole journey up until, you know, the NXT portion. I only know the NXT portion. Yeah. And you and I basically started almost at the same time with Reality of Wrestling. Because I've been there for 10 years as of this upcoming April. So, you know, I'm like 4 months away now from like, yay, I've been here for 10 years. That's kind of insane. And that's when you also started with us as well.
Yeah,
so we've kind of been running parallel.
Yeah, we have. And, you know, I'm always learning new things. I love doing what I'm doing. You know, I appreciated, I got to, my old man came to a wrestling show last month, to Reality Wrestling, for the first time. He had never seen, he had watched some of my stuff on TV, but he'd never been to a live wrestling event before. That's awesome. He grew up watching old pre-WWF, okay? So even when it was Capital Wrestling, like this, my dad is he's an oldie but goodie, but he used to watch it as a kid at his grandmom's house. And so he was like, he remembered and told me some of those stories, but he never cared for it and whatever. He watched it, but it was the first time, and it was really cool to see him like get a taste of it. But what I really appreciated was a lot of the guys and the girls would come up and introduce themselves to my dad, and they talk about like, they said very nice things about me, and I appreciated that. And it's like, shoot, man, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've met and been around a lot of other people. I'm happy to be in the position that I've been in and the things that I've seen, and I just want to do whatever I can to give back. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done things.
We all do.
But it's like, what can we do to impart knowledge? And, you know, whether it's getting you to do forward rolls in the ring, learning how to bump, but, you know, tips and tricks of the trade that I've learned and developed over the years for your commentary and what you do. Like, it's cool. It's like, I'm looking back that the fact that I've been involved in professional wrestling since 2006, and here we are today. Like, there's a lot that I've done, but man, then I get excited. Like, man, there's so much more to do. There's so much more left to do. So I'm excited about what the future holds and like the stuff that I get to do with professional wrestling. And then something happens where like they just, the WWE Vault and NXT Vault just released one of the tag team matches from the pilot episode of NXT that I was commentating on with Jim Ross. I was like, what? That was like early 2012. I totally forgot that happened. And I'm like, yeah, so I've done cool things, but I'm so excited about like the other things that are going to happen in the future. So get ready for 2026 and beyond, Kirby, because Raw is going to be everywhere, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
That's really cool that, you know, because when I first heard that you were with NXT, I was like, I wonder if I can find any of his stuff just to kind of like listen to it, because at the time I didn't know that I wanted to do commentary. Yeah. And then I was like, let me go on the network, and I just started looking at early episodes. I was like, that's that guy that I was just talking to. Holy crap! Yeah. And that's when I started like realizing more and more that, you know, you had been up there already, and it's like, I probably am going to learn a lot of things from him. And then I started doing commentary like years after. I was like, let me keep bugging him to see what I can learn. And, you know, little things that you've taught me that I mean, even in a character development from the promo classes that we've done together, a lot of the stuff that you said is like, well, you know, Dusty said. I was like, that is literally how I think and feel. So it just really makes me feel like, you know, had I met Dusty, had I gotten a chance to work with Dusty, I probably would have, you know, gotten along really well with him. And that makes me feel good because, you know, Dusty's a freaking icon. So
with an ego the size of about 4 zip codes. But yes, you know, I've learned a lot, and all I want to do is just be able to impart back everything that I've heard and retained and all the things. And then you look at, like, you know, from a commentary perspective, as hard as it is to make it to the quote unquote big leagues as a professional wrestler, it's even harder for guys, that are on the microphones to do that, right? Especially if you're a guy, especially if you're not an ex-wrestler, it's like they like, they've changed like who they want, what they want. And so it makes it harder. But the fact that, in this journey, I've met guys like Blake Chadwick,
awesome
and
dude. Awesome,
guys
awesome
like
guy.
Walker Stewart, and
another amazing guy.
Yeah, and like those guys, and running into them, and I'm not saying that I had anything to do with them, because it is their talent and their talent alone. But the fact that, somebody very wise once said, the same people you see on the way up are the same people you see on the way down, right? Booker talks about that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when these guys come to me or other people and they're like, what have you learned? Is there any advice? Like, you want to see everybody succeed. You want to see everybody succeed. And so I think like this fraternity of ours that we're in, it's like, what can we do to help each other up? And I know it's a dog-eat-dog world, and, sometimes, you don't want to see maybe other people do better than you or succeed more than you. That's just human nature, right? Other than your dad. Your dad's the only person that wants to see you do better than you.
Mm-hmm.
My mentality is I've done what I've done. I've lived my dream. That thing is over. But I want to see everybody. I want to see you there. You always strive. You talk about your meeting with John Cena and that you want to do something before you leave this world. You want to do something with him in some way, shape, or form.
One segment.
Right?
Just one segment.
But it's like, it's that drive when I see, young men and women, no matter what it is that they're doing, but especially broadcasters and whatnot. It's like, well, what can I do? Like, I want them to live their dream and be able to attain what it is that they do. So it's like, it's a cool spot. And then like, we work with someone like Brad Gilmore right now. I mean, that man is a true Renaissance man, right?
He's hustling all the time.
Author. He like does the best press junkets, right? Like the celebrities are genuinely surprised and impressed because of the types and levels of questions he has. Like, takes his job seriously. Obviously, all the stuff he does with ESPN. Like, Brad is the epitome of like the guy that like you want to strive for as far as in the media business and what you do. And like the fact that we get to work with somebody like that, right? And Booker, who, by the way, like still doing commentary stuff, right? Everything that he's done in this world of professional wrestling, and the fact that he's a 2-time Hall of Famer, he should damn near just be a 3-time Hall of Famer with just like his broadcasting career, right? Just like John Madden, right, was a coach and a broadcaster and a video game icon, and he can bridge all these. It's like having Booker, who like, there are kids today that never watched him growing up wrestling, but know him as a broadcaster. Like like we get to work with some of the smartest people to make us better. Right? So I don't care what I've done and where I've been. Like, I'm excited to work with guys that have been in high places, that want and strive for perfection. It only makes us better. So I'm excited. I'm excited with reality of wrestling. I know we just went off on a completely different tangent.
It's all good.
I can't wait to talk about this match here that I selected. But sometimes commentators need a little love. All right, sometimes the people with the microphone and the stick in their hand deserve a little bit of love. So you deserve some flowers too, Kirby. You've made tremendous progress in what you wanted to do and get out of this in the 10 years that you've been doing it. So I'm excited for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And funny enough, that's a reason why I started the podcast here, because I actually heard Michael Cole on Impulsive and talk about like, what advice would you give to, up and coming broadcasters? Like, create content, do something, make yourself a platform and a brand that can't be ignored. And I was like, I like that. And so I started to think like, what could I do that's interesting? And I was like, I could watch old stuff that I've never watched before. A, it increases my knowledge. And B, I get to share with stories with people that I know love this stuff before even I was born, and get to talk to people that may be watching stuff that I may not be watching. And then what can I take from those things? Like from the match that we're going to be talking about today, it's Dean Malenko and Cold Scorpio for the ECW TV Championship. And this is the third ECW match that I've watched. The first one was with Gustavo, where it was Jerry Lynn and RVD. The second one was actually the episode previous to this with Alex Devereaux, who is much younger than both of us. And he's a huge ECW fan, and I never knew that. And so I was like, oh my God, like, how are you watching all this older stuff? And I heard his story, and I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And you're teaching me stuff.
Yeah.
And again, you're younger than me. I love that. And so with this being the third one, I was like, okay, what can I take from this now that it's not like the later era ECW where it was already established that it's like, oh, we're going to use chairs all the time. We're going to use this. I've never seen a Dean Malenko match until now. I've never seen a Cold Scorpio match. until now. And I literally watched it last night before I went to bed, and I took a lot of notes, and I have like a little thing on my phone right up here that I'm going to grab in a second, and I'm going to run through the match as we go, and I'm just going to ask you questions about like the stories and stuff.
Love it.
Of like what I took from it, spots that I was like, ooh, that was interesting. Why doesn't anybody do that now? And, you know, maybe it just sparks an idea or creativity. Like with Gustavo, I don't know if you listened to that episode yet. We talked about a comedy character that could be like RVD. That's like, I'm going to introduce a new move, but it would never happen. And that could kind of be like a silly gimmick. And I was like, Dylan Filler could do that. But Gator could do that. But if they want to go with the comedy role, right? And stuff like that. So it would just be something like that. You never know when an idea could be sparked just off of a conversation like this.
Well, I'm doing that right now with Richard Holiday. Because in the rest of the indies, he has his signature move. But
literally sticker right there.
but it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do something like that at Reality of Wrestling, but I'm always going to tease it. And you never know what it's going to be.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
So it's just art breeds art.
Yeah.
And I love that. Yes, I do remember hearing. And so I'm excited about but let me put a bow tie on what you were saying about creating content and doing something that makes you stand out. I have one saying that I have created, or at least I believe I've created. I haven't heard. I usually use isms from other people, but my one Russo-ism that you're doing, make yourself undeniable so that you become irresistible, right? So whatever it is in pro wrestling, make yourself a known quantity and valuable in whatever it is that you do. Learn as much as you can, but do something that makes you stick out so that you become irresistible for someone that has no reason but to bring you on board for that. So the more that you create and more that you build your brand, you become undeniable. Make yourself so undeniable that you become irresistible. So I like what you're doing.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
I'm going to steal that for a closing for Sub-Zero. Because that show's coming up in a week from recording. So I think this episode will have already released by then. But, all right, so the match, like I told you guys, we're going to be talking about is Dean Malenko and Cold Scorpio for the ECW Television Championship in 95, I think?
Yeah, it's like March of 95. So,
gotcha.
So at this point, you know, I don't know if the decision has been made for him that like he knew he was going to go because he didn't leave. Dean did not pronouns, pal. Dean didn't leave ECW until like late summer of 95. Benoit had left before him, but at this time, I believe Benoit and Malenko were both the tag team champions and Dean was the television champion simultaneously. But this is the beginning of the end for Dean Malenko and ECW because then later that summer, as I said, he and Guerrero and Benoit end up leaving, and I think Mysterio maybe at the same time, if not a little bit later. But yeah, this is about the time where the Radicals end up leaving ECW to go to WCW. But yes.
So I was listening to the intros from the ring announcer. Aside from the Shooter, because that's the name that they kept calling him.
Yes.
Was he dubbed the sexiest man alive?
No.
Or sexiest man on earth?
No, the James Bond character that Vince tried to plug him into. No.
Okay, because that's what I heard on from the announcer. And I was like, I thought it was the Shooter, but now I'm hearing something different. Because I know him as the man of 1,000 holds, which then Jericho made fun of with the 1,004.
1,000, yeah, with his long list in the middle of the ring. That was awesome. No, the sexy, that was Vince trying to poke fun at Dean because he was just so serious and he wasn't much of a talker, and that was a character that they tried to fit for him there towards the end of his WWF run.
Gotcha. Okay.
And okay, it is, but like he's a shooter. That's what I appreciate about this match and why I pulled this particular match. So Dean Malenko is my favorite wrestler of all time. I love The Rock from an entertainment perspective. That was my favorite. But from when I first got into pro wrestling, like Dean Malenko matches were one of the first things I just remember seeing on the television. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't understand what I was watching, but I was enthralled with it. So, I watched a lot of Dean in WCW. And then obviously as I spent more time in wrestling and I then started immersing myself in it and watching this stuff in ECW is just awesome, right? And obviously there was something that he was showing off that made him irresistible to WCW to go. So this match, what I liked about is that I think the people that know Dean Malenko or the cruiserweights in WCW, obviously it's like that quadrilateral. I was going to say triangle, but the four, right? You have Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero, and Mysterio. Like the four of them. and you can add Psychosis to that too. But so maybe the 4 or 5 of them, like they're always well known with each other, right? They've battled each other, and they have just unbelievable matches. And you can find their clips and shorts, and that's more easily found. The underrated piece is Cold Scorpio, right? And he doesn't get as much love overall in the grand scheme of things because of the fact that he wasn't a great talker himself. But in addition to, like, he was like jumping around. I just don't think he stayed anywhere for enough time to establish himself. It was like ECW, then to like WWF is Flash Funk, and then he goes to WCW, and then back to EC. Like, it was hard for somebody to be able to stay with him during that time when there was no internet really like there is today, and cell phones and this, where you could follow and track. So you just kind of like forget about him. He just kind of moves around. But man, what he brought to the wrestling world. I mean, Xavier Woods that's like his favorite wrestler. Like, I love when Xavier talks about Cold Scorpio. He's like, dude, this guy, because he was so creative. He could do anything and everything. If you need mat wrestling, you got it. If you need strikes, you got it. If you need high flying, you got it, right? He was everything. And so that's why I really like this match is Malenko and Scorpio and what they bring to the table. You get a little taste of everything in this match. So that's why I pulled this one out. It's a deep, what they call the deep cut, right? And that's what this one is.
And that was funny too, because like I feel so far I have seen like high marquee matches, nothing really that's been like a deep cut, so to speak. And I like those matches that people maybe don't think about as like the classics, so to speak. And there's always something to learn. And there's a reason that certain matches stick with you. And the fact that the link I found was an official WWE link from Zack Ryder saying that this is like the underrated matches and underrated people. And I was like, okay, so now I know what I'm getting myself into. And the match itself wasn't something that, like Meltzer would be like 5 stars, but there was great psychology. There was great movement. It felt like a fight. And I'm going to give a shout out here right now. It very much felt like I walked into a training at Reality of Wrestling from like 6-7 years ago, and I was watching Rex Andrews just work with people when he just had somebody in the ring with him, and then he had 5 people lined up. It's like, we're just going to grapple. We're just going to go. And that's very much what it felt like from Malenko. And I thought that was really cool because I hadn't gotten that feeling from watching somebody inside a ring since Rex Andrews left Reality of Wrestling. So I think that it was a great throwback for me, so to speak, to just see that work.
We'll go into it. I want to get through your questions and talk through the match, but I think what makes it so impressive is that, look, ECW fans, but the old hardcore fans, they'll call out stuff that they don't like. They'll boo if there's not enough action or excitement or activity. This was not a barn burner where they were going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I like the idea that you talked about, that there was movement. There was a lot of movement. Like, they weren't standing still. There was a lot of ground game work. There was a lot of stuff where it's a lot of holds, creative, but it wasn't like this thing that built into this giant crescendo of a traditional, like what you may typically see on TV today. But yet the crowd wasn't poo-pooing it, right? It just goes to show you that intensity plus movement creates that fighting feel where you go, I can't wait to see what's next. I believe it enough that I'm not going to sit here and boo just because they're working a sleeper hold or a dragon screw leg lock or something like that. Like, the fans, as hardcore as ECW fans are, they appreciated it too. So that just tells you something, that it wasn't boring, and it wasn't like that. To me is what really good mat wrestling should end up becoming. Throwing in the flair, the movement, but the intensity between the two of them. So that's all those reasons, but I'd love to let's start picking apart and go through kind of what you've got.
Okay, so let's see. Again, shout out to Joey being solo commentary.
Yeah.
This is the second time now that I've heard him be solo on commentary. And after talking to Alex, he told me that apparently they call this from the back. So they're not even in on the ring side. They're just in a room in the back watching everything. Right. And the thing that we talked about in that episode was it's really tough to even get the energy from the crowd to bring yourself up and feed off of that to continue doing commentary, because when you're in the middle of it, that gets infectious. You start yelling, you start getting louder, and it again, just shouts out to Joey for A, doing commentary on his own, and B, still adding excitement to the match, being able to tell the story and do both sides of the analyst and the play-by-play by himself, because that shit's tough.
Oh, it's not easy. And that was the MO, I think, for Joey for a lot of those, is that it's not like he was right there in the thick of it calling the matches. He was either far and away or and you're right? You have to put yourself, like, the hardest is like doing wild lines.
Yeah.
Like when you finish a match, or you have to redo the whole match because the audio didn't work and you have to call it all over again in a completely sterile environment like this. You've got to put yourself into the moment, and you've got to, like you have to put on the show just like the performers do in the middle of the ring.
Yeah. But yeah, that was for me, that was tough to not tough to listen to in a bad way. It's just like, I can't imagine being in that, because I have been in that. When I first started, I called almost an entire show by myself, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe it's gonna be a real reality of wrestling episode, before I actually got the call from Booker. It's like, all right, you're gonna be on Summer of Champions with Brad, and I was like, oh shit, now I'm one of the ones. But I mean, again, shouts out Joey Styles. That as much as I want to be like, you did this, like, I just can't, because that, again, solo commentary is just tough. Okay, so the pace of the match is something that I also really appreciated, because like you said, there's always movement. Normally, when I see a fast match, there's like 7 moves happening within like 1 minute, and they're going back and forth and everything. But I hope that this makes sense. But it was a very technical pace, that it was kind of like a chess match. And that's something that I feel we don't get too often anymore. I think the last time I saw like an incredibly technical chess match was Regal and Cesaro, when Regal retired in NXT. And it was just like, move for move, they're going to just mat wrestle. Like, they barely even use the ropes for anything. And that's, again, something of a lost art, I feel, now in modern WWE wrestling. Because, I mean, I don't watch much AEW, and I'm about to start, because I really need to, catch other talents and just get more exposure to different styles. But in WWE, it's not something that we really see anymore. There's not pandering to the crowd. There's no like, oh, look what I did, and the trying to draw boos. They are telling their entire story strictly through just their technical stuff in the ring, which I think that's maybe why people love Malenko. Would I be right in that assessment?
I mean, Booker will talk about 2 things, one that Dean does in this match, and one thing that he doesn't do, right? It is important to draw the crowd in and the audience in, and to break up the things that you do by, quote unquote, pandering to the audience, doing things that gets them riled up. Now, I will say, Dean doesn't typically do it. During one spot in the match, he rolls out and he pulls the guardrails, right? But he was doing pronouns, pal. Dean was doing heelish things, but the crowd wasn't soaking it in as a heel, but nor did he try to go over the top to be like, I'm the heel in this match, I'm the bad guy in this match. It was just whatever he was trying to do to get a win, right? The low blow was involved, and using the ropes for leverage, but the crowd wasn't booing him incessantly, but he wasn't trying to pander to the crowd. It was just him just doing what needed to be done to win. But again, ECW crowd, a little bit different than traditional WWE crowd. But Booker does talk about pandering, and like, you need to do it intelligently, but you need to do it. You've got to create that connection. Dean wasn't always the greatest at that, and that's fine. There was a reason why he wasn't the most charismatic. But the other thing that Booker absolutely talks about is movement. Don't grab a headlock and then just stay in one spot. Work all 4 sides, move around, and that Dean absolutely can do blind. But there's a difference between moving quickly and then moving with a purpose and moving deliberately, right? I talk about a lot of sayings I love, a lot of isms. So John Wooden, famous UCLA basketball coach, had a lot of those sayings, a lot of those isms, and one of them was, be quick but don't rush. Move with a sense of purpose, but don't go 1,000,000 miles an hour, because then you'll get sloppy, things could happen. Like, don't move for the sake of moving, and then sometimes if you're moving too much too quickly, fans can't keep up. So when they are moving, make your movements deliberate, but move with a sense of purpose. And so as they are wrestling inside and outside the ring, Dean Malenko and Too Cold, there's a sense of purpose. So you can understand why they're moving for the sake of moving. So those I'm glad you picked that up. Yes, that makes the match very intense.
Alrighty, so the technical pace, again, something I really appreciated, because I think that was maybe why I was also drawn to the 97 Halloween Havoc match with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Same thing. Like, that pace is just something that you don't see quite often. Like the moves from Ray were flashy, but when Eddie was in charge of that match, again, it was a very deliberate technical pace. And something I really appreciated about that match was I was watching it, and then Heather was watching it with me. And again, she doesn't like wrestling, but she was drawn in by that. And I was like, okay, what's different from that than what's happening now? And I starting to piece everything together. And I think, and according to her, it's the hokiness of now where you can see stuff coming, where it's just, and I guess this is maybe the only word that I can think of. It's overproduced now.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't feel like it's working, so to speak.
And that whole match was called, the whole Dean Too Cold, you can see was called on the fly.
Oh, yeah.
Even because there was a spot that was a little bit of a mess up. Dean has got Too Cold's foot on the rope, and he climbs the rope to sit on the knee. Too Cold moves it out of the way. Dean doesn't kind of see it just because he's getting up.
Yeah.
He misses.
Yeah.
He goes for it. He misses completely. The crowd actually doesn't poo-poo that either, a little bit, but then they get right back into it. So it's like there isn't a sense of overproduction. There is not. But they can work well with one another. They move They move with a sense of urgency, but they move slowly and deliberately. And that's a great piece. That's one of the other isms that I've got, which is for any wrestler, if you think you're going slow, go slower.
Yep. I told somebody that once at work, funny enough. Because it's like I apply a lot of my wrestling teachings at work, and then they're like, "What do you mean go slower?" I was like, "Do you want to mess up? No, well then go slower." But I'm already really slow, and they're like, "Then go slower." And they're like, "I don't get it." I was like, "All right," and then they ended up coming up to me with like, "Oh, I got to comp this, I got to comp that." I was like, "Did you go slow?" No. I was like, "There you go."
For wrestlers, it's about going slower. For commentators, the equivalent, like I always talk about, what Jim Ross said. I can't believe I'm about to do this. Listen, Russo, you don't get paid by the word, so you don't need to talk a whole lot. Just get in and get out, because you don't get paid by the word. So that's like the equivalent for us commentators. Go slow. Don't need to say a lot of things.
Yeah. Dead air is not your enemy. It is your friend. I can't wait to get the Dusty impression on the podcast too. That's going to be the clip right there. This is now JR's Barbecue, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so one thing, again, my first time watching Too Cold Scorpio, I wanted to see like what the draw was for, it's a lot of people have told me about Too Cold Scorpio. I popped whenever BK announced that he was working him, I want to say like 2 years ago. And I was like, I know that name. I know it's a very respected name. I'm happy that BK is getting that opportunity. That's fantastic. But I still did not go out of my way to go look for matches. So when you put this one on my plate, I was like, okay, let's see what he's got. And let me see what I can pick up from this. The one thing that I picked up was that Dean Malenko was the technical guy, but Scorpio, maybe not a brawler, but he was striking really well. That dude's strikes look amazing. And I really want to know how much they hurt, how well he places them, because I've heard other people talk about, oh, that strike didn't hurt at all. Like most recently on Insight with Chris Van Vliet, I heard Chelsea say that Penta's chops didn't even hurt. Like he knows how to place them and everything. I was like, that's fun, because Gino's chopped me and I started crying because that hurt like a motherfucker. But the strikes looked fantastic. Again, they looked real and they looked like they actually hurt. So I don't know if that's something that Too Cold Scorpio is known for, but those strikes look fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, he was
very tight as well.
Very snug. There's always safe spots, what they call safe places, safe spots on a body to hit, where you're going to hit, you can hit as hard as you can, and it's not going to cripple you and debilitate you. And if you know where to land the blows, you land them. They look great. They hurt, but they won't absolutely murder you, right? Yeah. And so Too Cold knows where they are. What I found interesting about his strike, especially towards the end of the match, is he gets what they call flippers, right? But he's hitting them in the front, in the chest, and usually flippers go right on the neck. And I actually have not seen much of that before. The way that he was landing those particular strikes at the end was different, very creative. But creative is the best adjective to describe Charles, Too Cold, Charles. Just because he was able to, he just had this gift where, like, I'm going to try something. He was athletic and big enough that it looks good, it lands well. I was lucky enough training when I was down at AFA's. Charles came like twice to like to help train, like just to watch and to, you know, chime in and stuff. You know, just pick his brain. But he would just talk about how he's like, I thought of something. I gave it a shot. I tried it. I landed it. I did it. You know, it's just like, man, like that's unbelievable, right? To be able to have that ability, right? Not just to be creative, but to be like, I'm going to try it, and then athletic enough that you're like, no problem. So that was his MO.
That's awesome. And it's made me want to go back and watch more. Yeah. Because like whenever you catch on to something that somebody's good at, I don't know if it's just the one match that they did it really good in, or if there's future matches that they did really good in, and maybe that's why they have the reputation that they do. Which I will never ever stop laughing. That it's a running joke within a lot of reality of wrestling trainers, from what I've seen, is that strikes are important, and they will call out anybody that has terrible strikes.
Oh yeah, because that's the first thing that exposes the business. If your strikes aren't good, that suspension of disbelief that the fans want to have, it just goes away. Like lay them in there. Strikes are so important because people overdo them, which they shouldn't. Again, another ism is that one really good strike is better than 3 or 4 ones in a row, right? Remember listening and hearing that from Tyson Kidd, from TJ, right? And it just makes all the sense in the world. If you lay out somebody strong with one, you don't need 5 or 6 in a row, because then what did that mean for the other for the first 4? Strikes are super important. So the guys that can lay them in really well makes a big difference.
Hell yeah. I know another person that I've watched throughout this whole journey so far was Bret Hart. Bret Hart's strikes are also really, really good. And again, I feel like that, I don't want to call it a lost art, because there's still some people that like deliver some great strikes, but I feel like that should be like a big lesson for up and coming wrestlers. Like really work on your strikes. Like the flashy moves may get you like a viral moment and everything.
A good punch. And this isn't just coming from us, right? I mean, I even, you know, when, what's his name from, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, that from Evolve, that's now over there in WWE. That's helping. No, helping with the ID.
Sapolsky?
Yeah, Gabe. Thank you, Gabe Sapolsky. Right, that was one of his pieces of advice too. Was like, make your strikes good, preferably also unique if you can. But man, if you can't, make them count. The strikes are important. The strikes are important, especially to the people that matter most in that office, right? Because nothing makes you more credible and more believable than someone that can throw a punch that makes it look like it's the most devastating thing ever.
Hell yeah. And just like that, we went on a whole tangent on strikes just off of the 1-2 Cold Scorpio comment. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the manager that was out there. I think his name was Jason.
Yeah, I don't have enough. There's nothing I can tell, right?
Fair enough.
And frankly, he wasn't much of a... I think he was just a little crutch there at the end to sow the seeds, but I don't want to get... Because I don't know enough about that storyline with Jason and his involvement, and he didn't add anything to the match.
Gotcha. Okay. So then how early was this into ECW's tenure as a company? Because I know they ended around like 2000, 2001, I want to say, because of the invasion and everything. So how long did ECW stick around? Because this was 95.
Yeah, so ECW kind of in that Eastern Championship Wrestling iteration was something like 92, 93, right? Like that people really I'm trying to remember if... you know, what its existence was kind of prior to 92, 93, and what's his name? Gordon, the kind of the original owner of it. I think that's when it was started. But anyways, it's like, to me, in my mind, it starts in like 93's Eastern Championship Wrestling. And at that time, like, I actually was just going down a random rabbit hole and found that, like, very interestingly, people like 92 and 93, you had... like Jimmy Snuka was champion at Eastern Championship Wrestling during that time. Don Morocco was wrestling and did shows at that time. Like some pretty big names that were like off of WWF at that time had come through even before Shane Douglas famously threw the old ECW championship in the trash can, and they rebranded to Extreme Championship. There was like a period in that early 92, 93, I think Terry Funk was there in some iteration, even before later with Mick Foley. So it was around, and Pennsylvania was a big hotspot for a lot of wrestlers in the WWF to live, because so much of what the WWF was filming at the time was around Pennsylvania anyways, Allentown, Hazleton, and I only know this because Afa used to live up there, right? And so there's a lot of WWF stuff there, so it was really easy, I think, for a lot of those names, if they weren't under contract, to end up doing shows. So you have the Eastern Championship Wrestling. Shane Douglas does the trash can, Paul Heyman takes it over, buys him out, or he was already the booker at that time, but I think he buys out. Whatever the case, it becomes Paul Heyman's, and then like 1994, 95 is really in my little brain. You're really looking at like late 94, early 95 when ECW starts to come into its own with like the people that Heyman is bringing in, right? You've got these cruiserweights. Taz, the Tasmaniac, is like becoming its own thing. Sabu, like these names are starting to like percolate that end up becoming like synonymous with ECW, and then it rolls through. Then it becomes like bigger and bigger and bigger. And remember, at this time, even 95, 96, 90, like ECW was initially supported by Bischoff. Hence, a lot of the WCW talent, or they would go to WCW. There was some crossover going on. I think like some crossover with one of their pay-per-views when Worlds Collide. I think there was some WCW talent that was being brought in around 95. And then something happened that I don't have enough history about, whatever. But then obviously they start kind of getting a little bit more risque. They start doing more things. This obviously catches Vince's eye. And then even Vince then starts in late 96 and into 97. They start supporting ECW, right? And then you start to see some of this talent crossover onto Raw. Like RVD had a match with a young Jeff Hardy. Sabu was on there. So there was a storyline, little angle with that. And so there was obviously that connection. And I know that there's documentaries on the network and stuff like that talks about it. And then, they get this deal with TNN, that becomes Spike Network, but it was very lopsided. It was one-sided. They got screwed out. And then, when you're not making, your payments to the boys and money's tight and whatnot, and, there's only so much Vince flow, you just kind of bought them out, right? And then, they get involved in the invasion angle. But, like, there was this period from, like, again, in my brain, I really started watching wrestling in earnest, like, mid 97. And then I remember like being able to catch, randomly found ECW on a local cable access network at sporadic times on like Wednesday nights. I was like, what is this ECW thing? This was like 98, 99. And then next thing you know, they get purchased, they get bought out, and then this talent starts flowing into WWF. Then he starts to see like more of these guys, right? But then, I'd like to go back, and I went and started watching it. And you're like, man, this stuff was so cool that they were doing. It's obviously very cutting edge stuff, right? And don't have the Attitude Era without ECW.
Yeah. I love how you found ECW pretty much how I found Raw to start, because like you were just flipping through channels and you just found it on this random day on a Wednesday. And I'm flipping through channels at like, I want to say like 12 on a random Saturday. And then on channel 57, I see a guy just talking to the camera. And I was like, okay, that was intriguing. And it was Shawn Hendricks. And I was like, talking about Legion, what the hell is this? And then I saw a wrestling ring. And then I saw BK, the old BK with the tights and everything, like the small tights. So I was like, okay, this is wrestling. What is this? And then I heard Reality of Wrestling. I was like, okay, this is cool. Let me see what this is about. And then now,
have you noticed? Like, there's no, like, I don't think channel flipping exists, and channel surfing doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So that's one of those like.
Now we call it. Now it's just YouTube channel surfing. Like a YouTube clip has to go viral for you to like get found. And it's like it's crazy.
Times are changing.
But yeah, no, it's great that's how you found ECW, and that's how I found Raw. And it's kind of like, those were the days. Those were fun times. Okay, so going back to the match, there was one spot that I really liked that I see not happen too frequently, but the way that they did it in this match was I feel a lot different than it is produced now, where there was a headlock from Malenko to Scorpio, and Scorpio tries to like leave the ring, but then Dean Malenko follows him with it, and they get right back into it.
A headlock slash but headlock. Yeah, they worked the headlock. They worked the headlock. You said you don't see it much. I don't think I've ever seen it before or since.
I've seen it maybe like twice.
to me, that is how you work the hold. A unique, creative way. Scorpio tries to break it by rolling out. Dean stays on him. He rolls back in, still on him. They move. It's that movement, working a hold. That is absolutely lost art. But again, especially with what you see on TV, you only have so much time, right? That's why the best way to enjoy something like the WWE is through a house show. Now, I know they don't have many of those anymore.
Yeah.
But if you can watch a house show, like all the wrestlers love house shows. Everybody loves house shows that work. So like we can have fun. We're not restricted. The bosses aren't here, and like we can screw around and have a good time, and give the fans something to really enjoy. House shows are where you would see something like that. That's fun. That's cool. I would recommend, if you can, go to a non-live event. That's the kicker.
Nice.
What they used to call house shows.
I think they're doing the WWE live tours now, and I saw Dallas had one, and I was like, I should take Heather to one of those.
Those are the most fun. I cannot stress enough, go to one of those non-televised Raw. Like if it's not SmackDown or not Raw or not a premium live event, go to one of those house shows. What us old fogies used to call them.
Now, you mentioned that that's something that we haven't seen since.
Yeah.
Something that I haven't seen ever in this match that I hope somebody out there watching this podcast potentially takes was a leg drop from Scorpio. I really like the way it was delivered.
He pushed him off. He didn't stand on the turnbuckle. He just propped himself up. He like slingshotted himself.
Yeah, like
cool.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And I like when stuff like from like you watch old stuff and then you try and readapt it to now. Which shouts out to Warren whenever he was doing his heel run with the Renegades. Yeah. I had not seen anybody do the Eddie Guerrero like head snap with his legs and everything, and he started adapting that into his playbook as a heel, and I was like, hell yeah, I know exactly where you got that from, because I'd only seen Eddie do that, and now we're seeing Gunther do it on WWE, so I was like, all right, that's fine. Gunther can have it, and it's a good small thing that again doesn't get used much. And I really hope that maybe I'll try and convince somebody at Raw to start doing it, because I think that's something that, again, you don't see often and maybe could help you stand out now. And, I'm going to tell I stole it from Cold Scorpio. In my first match that I watched, I was like, I want somebody to steal this because I think it's effective.
You gotta watch the creative people.
Yeah.
And Too Cold is one of those. As I said, he is underrated. Pronouns, pal. Cold Scorpio, extremely underrated. And that's, again, if I get one pair of eyeballs on Too Cold that have never seen him, then this podcast is a complete success.
Well, I'm already one of them, so maybe there'll be more out there. But yeah, no, I think it's fantastic to again get inspired by that.
Yeah.
Which, talking about getting inspired, I like the way that Joey Styles like really carried the story. Like my brain is very WWE pilled when it comes to commentary, because obviously that's where I want to be eventually at one point. And so like I always kind of like listen and try and apply my knowledge to everything that I hear. And I like the fact that Joey Styles was like, there's no way Cold Scorpio is going to win. He starts building that doubt. And that's one of the things that Blake Chadwick and Vic Joseph have both told me. If you know you should know the finish, and you have to start planting those seeds early. I was like, there's no way that this is going to win, but don't be definitive about it. Just be like, this is a tough challenge. How is the babyface going to do it? And start building that sympathy, because the entire match, depending on where you're going, 90% of the time should be building sympathy for the babyface, because that's who you're trying to put over. Even if the heel wins, they're probably going to do some dastardly deed to try and get the victory or whatever. And what I like about it is that I don't even know the finishes to these matches as I'm watching them. Like, I don't look anything up until after I watched it. And I was like, based on what I know, I have a feeling Scorpio's going to win, but I don't know how. And that doubt was starting to creep up as soon as he started building. And I was like, is he going to win? Is he not going to win? And again, I don't know the story. I don't know anything that's happening. Then Taz ends up coming out, and I was like, okay, now there's a ref bump. Now there's this. And all the chaos of the match starts happening with the story being told.
There's so much malarkey that takes place in, which is another reason why I love this match. Like, the ref gets pulled in to take a splash from Too Cold, and then Taz gets so mad at the ref after he interferes that he just beats the hell out of the ref some more. Like, it just had a little bit of everything in this match that just made it very like you can't get bored at any one thing. It just had it it had a lot. And frankly, the way that Too Cold worked, sold his leg. Dean did a masterful job of working Scorpio's leg. Mm-hmm. Scorpio, to the point where it would really hurt and affect the way that Scorpio would land and do things. But Too Cold never forgot to keep selling it. There was a point in the match where Dean is trying to hit Too Cold with a tombstone.
Yeah.
And this is a Dean specialty, is the start him into a tombstone, and then he himself gets tombstone. But you'll notice that Too Cold, when he drops to his knee, he only drops on one knee, his good one. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to tweak it and hurt it again. Another time, Dean Malenko Irish whips Too Cold into the corner, and you see kind of Too Cold hobble. I don't know. I'm of the mindset, if you work the leg, you shouldn't whip somebody, or else they should just fall down, right? Yeah. Because you've hurt their leg. But even the way, as soon as he gets whipped, Too Cold moves out of the way so that Dean hits the turnbuckle and hits nothing. But even the way that Too Cold escapes out still sells the leg, where I'm just watching it because I want to stay in that moment of suspension of disbelief, and he keeps me in there, right? So there's an art to being able to work a match while still selling. In fact, Booker did a film study about a month or so ago. We actually we watched a match of his. Mm-hmm. It was King Booker versus Bobby Lashley on a SmackDown. It was like a 2-segment match, but Bobby was coming off of like rib injuries. Okay, so Bobby is like. It is like 90% Booker destroying Bobby in this match. But Booker does a massive job, and Lashley's still a rookie kind of at this point. He really is, right? He's still relatively brand new. We're talking like 06, right? 06?
That's when he debuted,
06, 07, early? Like somewhere in that time frame, right? But Booker is working him in a way to making sure that when Lashley does what he does, it still looks strong. He hasn't forgotten about the selling part, but it's 90% Booker. But when Lashley pulls out the win and everyone goes crazy, like he stays strong, but he never forgets about. But that was Booker teaching him and talking through him through the match. Mm-hmm. Charles, he don't have to do that. With Too Cold, it's just like he just knows, right? It's an instinctive, but it keeps you locked in on that match, right? So my disbelief was still suspended.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Eventually, I want to have a Booker match on this show, and I think I want Kevin to do it with
I know you're building up for it. I get it.
I'm gonna do it with Kevin, and that's gonna be the funniest thing because we're gonna be like, "Hey, Booker, this is all your teachings coming into all play at once." I think I want to do a WCW match of his because all I know about Booker was from 04 WrestleMania 20 and beyond. So I saw like the tail end of his career before he dwindled it all down like 6 years afterwards.
Man, his best of 7 with Benoit. Mm-hmm. Is to me is what got it's like. I mean, that hook, like I was watching WCW, I told you, like 6-7 months prior, mm-hmm. but that was, and it sounds like I'm sucking up to the boss man, and frankly, sure, why not? But I'm telling you, as a kid watching this best of 7, I was glued. I was like, who is going to come out on top? And this wasn't for the U.S. title; it was for the opportunity to be the number 1 contender for the U.S. title. So match 7, game 7, was at the Great American Bash in Baltimore, Maryland. And mm-hmm. I was living in the D.C. metro area. Mm-hmm. You best believe I went with my buddy, and his mom was kind enough to buy us the tickets and take us. And we sat the very last row. Our backs were up against the Baltimore Harbor or whatever the arena was there in Baltimore. We were there. I watched him beat Benoit and then beat Finlay for the U.S. title. That was what I was there for. Mm-hmm. So... And Booker always speaks very highly of that best of 7, but his stuff with Bret Hart. We're going on a tangent. Like, yes,
tangents are good. Tangents are good.
WCW stuff with Booker, man, he's got some bangers, mm-hmm. absolute bangers. But yes,
hell yeah, I can't wait.
But then again, so did Dean Malenko.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I'm learning that now because again, like the thing that I'm liking about this show so far is that it's gotten me interested in watching more.
The show's all about you, Kirby. Yeah. This is for your own self-interest. I get it.
It's making me better. It's making me better because then it's also making me want to give ideas to wrestlers. Like,
sure.
I talked to Buck about Toru Yano, and I told him, you're basically that guy here. You're peddling your wares and you're kind of goofy, But when shit hits the fan, you know that you can be serious. And that's what, that's, I feel like kind of what Booker's trying to tell you. And it was basically like doing a film study with him on a podcast and everything. We just recorded it. So like seeing him, like the ideas come to him from watching other stuff was great. So, that's, again, another purpose for this.
Shout out to Buck Gator.
Yeah. Fantastic guy. Definitely fantastic guy out there. Okay, so getting into the finish of the match, Taz shows up and we see the ref bump happen. What happened between Taz and Malenko? Because all I heard was an injury had happened.
Yeah, there was the tag team championship match where they won the titles. I think it was like Benoit and Malenko versus Sabu and Taz, or it was Taz was involved and Malenko obviously like went after him prior. So this was Taz trying to give a receipt.
Gotcha.
To it. So there was a little bit of a little schmoz between them leading up to that pay-per-view. I forget what was the name of the three-way dance or something like that. Is from this was the pay-per-view that this Malenko Too Cold match was on.
Gotcha. And what a hell of a receipt he gave him. He folded him in half with that suplex.
That side, I don't know what it's called.
We're just gonna call it a Tazplex. That's what Joey Styles always does.
Everything is a Tazplex, right? He just dumped him on the back of his neck.
Yeah, that was like. It was funny because like as I was writing, it's like he folded him in half. Holy shit! That's when Joey was like, he folded him like an accordion. I was like, that's commentary.
I mean
speak.
I remember listening to one of JR's podcasts with Conrad and talking about Taz and why the success didn't carry over and I mean in ECW he could just run roughshod and dump people on their necks and things like that. And I think Jim Ross like mentioned two things. Like number one, I think they wanted him not to wear the sweats because he's got big tree trunk legs, but for whatever reason, I think he felt like he didn't conform to what the WWF wanted him to like look and dress, number one. And then number two is just like, he couldn't be that unsafe. Yeah. His whole MO was like, I'm just going to dump you on your neck, but I'm Taz. Like, I'm going to it's like, can't do that to our cash cows over here. So I think that was one of those things, but like Taz, there's a whole story arc in ECW, those later years, 97, 90, whatever. It's like Taz and Sabu about Taz breaking Sabu's neck. Good stuff, man. It's just like these long arc rivalries that ECW was able to cultivate with their personalities. Tommy Dreamer and Taz and Sabu. Like these guys were there for so long. Like they were able to create these very long story arcs, which made for really good TV. From a story perspective, they beat the hell out of each other, right? So the hardcore fan could get, their bloodlust satisfied. And at the same time, for people that are really more geared to like enjoying a story of good versus evil, you're getting that too. So it wasn't this program that lasts for 4 weeks, let's get to the pay-per-view, and then all of a sudden they forget about each other. I mean, this stuff would go. And they were able to create these back and forths, right? So ECW just brought a lot of interesting, unique sort of concepts and things that, again, you don't see much today and, help kind of make it relevant, even though they were by far like number 3, right, in that whole Monday Night War thing.
And I feel like that's also kind of now there's like a lot of different places where they're like number 3s, but they do some things better for other people because it's like we talk about this on the podcast all the time. It's like different types of ice cream, right? On the last ECW episode that we did, the Alex one, we talk about death matches, and I was like, that's like mint chocolate chip to me. I know a lot of people love it, but it just ain't for me, dude. Like I just,
you don't like
I'm
mint
good.
Chocolate chip? Damn.
I'm one of the weird ones.
All right. But you're right. There's different strokes for different folks. Certain things I gravitate towards, others I don't. I'm looking forward to a future podcast with you to talk about Gary Albright. I've got stories and things about Gary, and just like I love everything about him. From All Japan. They like SWS stuff, or like early '90s WWF partnership with Japanese wrestling was with SWS. Like there's all this cool stuff that like World of Sport, which I go gaga for World of Sport. You want to talk about? That's probably one of the weirdest. That's like rum raisin. Most people are like, what? World of Sport, like old school British style round wrestling. Like, I love it. I love it.
Hell yeah.
I would wax poetic. So when I was down at FCW, most of my commentary work was with Byron Saxton. But there was a period of time where there was actually a lot of time that I was down there where William Regal was part of I don't know what was going on or what the premise was or whatever, but William Regal did a lot of commentary with us down at FCW as well. And so I got to spend a lot of time with Mr. Regal. And one of the things I enjoyed talking to him about was like world of sports stuff. I was just fascinated with it. I just found it so unique and cool. So, all right, again, different tangents, different flavors of ice cream. I'm all about it. You're right. There's something out there for everybody.
Trust me, we love tangents on this podcast. We've had the craziest tangents with Gustavo. We talked about Lord of the Rings for like a good 10 minutes. So we love tangents here. It's all good. So to wrap up the match, we see the finish happen with Taz getting involved. And what I liked about the finish was that, again, the match was very much Dean Malenko is, the shooter. He's the one that's always going to keep going at it. And even with the finish, you would think after Taz gets involved that Cold Scorpio would get the win, but he doesn't. He kicks out. And then they keep going for a little bit longer, and it still kept Dean looking strong. Yeah. As, a lot of fans it's like, oh, he did, he got to look strong in defeat and everything like that. But even with the story that was being told, I very much believe that this wasn't the end of Dean Malenko as like that threat, which was really cool because then Scorpio got the win in a very uphill battle. Even with an interference, it didn't matter because now the story moves from the title match to what are Dean and Taz going to do next. And, you transfer that energy from this match to the next one, from building A to building B.
Yep. Booker always talks about make your losses look better than your wins.
Yep. I feel like that's been the lesson almost all year. Like, I know he says it a lot, but I feel like every single meeting that we've had lately is always like that's been like the thing that he's been focusing on this year.
Because people, look, these are choreographed matches with predetermined outcomes.
Yeah.
That does not mean that you should phone it in. People can see through that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the suspension of disbelief. So Joey's setting it up. Man, there's no way the babyface can overcome this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dean looks like $1 million. Dean looks like he's going to win it. But the way that he loses, you're like, he had him. Mm-hmm. He had him dead to rights. It was just, it's like an MMA match. He just put his his hand down for just a split second, and he got caught. Like, there's no way he would have lost that otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
No, he probably wouldn't have. But it's just
right place, right time.
But I'm just saying, it's just those the good wrestlers know these little tricks of the trade, and it's because they've honed it. They're always going to training, but they're going out there. They're working a lot, and they're working good shows. They're working good people to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to do in today's fractured independent wrestling landscape. Guys, girls, if you're looking for a place to really learn and get better, come to the reality of wrestling, right? You may not get yourself on a show right away. You may not get yourself, you're not going to become this superstar overnight, coming in. Nobody does. Nobody is, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
You've got to earn it, but you will get better, and but you got to put in the effort. And those old territory days did a lot to get those people ready for the big time. And it's harder and harder to find reputable, good places where you can get better. It's one thing to get reps, but it's about getting good reps, right?
Yeah.
Row is one of those places. Of course, we're going to put it over. There are other good places, but obviously we're biased, and we're here in Houston, and come here, right? You'll get better. You got your film study people. You're gonna listen. You want to get Booker's got no problem showing Dean Malenko matches, right? No problem showing matches like this, and there's always something to learn from these guys. And as much as it's great to watch, a lot of these entertaining figures, and even guys like Kurt Angle, like, everybody knows Kurt Angle can work, and he's entertaining, right? And all these things, was like, there's all these other guys take from. And so I'm glad we were able to kind of take a look at this match, and I've got strong feelings, and I've got, oh my God, I have a bootleg collection of Dean Malenko matches that span from 94 to 98.
Mm-hmm.
Late 98. Now, so it's like the thick of it, like all the good, like, man, just the best. But it's every single match. I have 4. They're like this thick. They have 4 boxes. It's like a box set. I have 4 total that span this whole time frame, and each box contains at least 4 DVDs. So I've got 16 or 18 DVDs full of Dean Malenko matches. because I'm just a masochist for this stuff. So even the stuff that you can't find on YouTube, I've got it. It's like I'm a pusher. You want Dean Malenko? You want Dean Malenko matches?
I got
him. I got him somewhere. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. The cruiserweights were what pulled me in to stick to wrestling, right? And I'm always appreciative of what they brought. And when they brought back 205, right, the classic, the Cruiserweight Classic, to try to rekindle it, it was there. There was a little bit of earnest effort around it. But the Cruiserweights today, like, you watch them work then, and you compare that, that was like a really good way to be like, this is what the Cruiserweights were, 25 years ago. Here's what they are now. No simpatico, it's just, it's different. It's different. It's not worse, but it's just different. And there was something about the WCW run and what the little guys could do to still make you believe. I mean, it stinks that they were always on the undercard. And obviously, Jericho talks about it, all these guys talk about they left because it's like, we're not going to get to Hogan's level. Like, Ray was the exception to the rule with him and Kevin Nash and what they were doing, but otherwise Cruiserweights would never get the time of day. And I completely understand. You go where the grass is greener, where you can get an opportunity, and you can work, make a name, make money with the WWF. Like, yeah, totally understand. But they knew at least how to work, and they told a flavor of story that was just very unique and very different. So people still look back, like my generation. I can't. I'm the old fart around here. my generation growing up and just watching this, and it's like it was a style that like. It's like a throwback. It's like a bygone era, right? Because the cruiserweight, they're all kind of cruiserweights in this day and age. Like the days of the 280 pounder, everybody being at 265 or 200. It's like it's gone. So okay, guys are slim and small, but that unique style of wrestling. And I'd actually end with it, like from a cruiserweight perspective, another real phenomenal guy to watch and is like the Dynamite Kid. Like, the stuff that he was doing in the 80s was awesome, right? Like, he brought that style. Somebody could be, he was gassed up like nobody's business, but he was still a cruiserweight-looking guy. I mean, he was still short. But, man, just the intensity that he would bring to that, Benoit also replicated that kind of level of intensity, but all of them did. But I would even say Dynamite Kid was, like, the blueprint that I would look at to be like, that's what, like, in my head, between Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid, they were like the blueprint from which then evolved into the cruiserweights that we watched during the Monday Night Wars, which kind of died on the vine. And so it's a fun era to think back upon now fondly. I'm glad that you gave me this platform to talk about this, and I just love Dean, so I'm like, man, I just want the world and Too Cold. So.
Hell yeah.
Glad I got to talk about it.
No, I'm really glad too, because, again, I'm learning new things, right? And I'm taking stuff not just from matches themselves, but also from commentary standpoint, getting different people, listening to different people, hearing their nervous tics. And it's like, I should not repeat that. And then, it's just how to tell a story differently.
Sure.
So, everybody's learning, and I've even had people message me. They're like, I listened to the episode from so-and-so. They're like, I didn't even know about this. I learned about this. And something that I'm also just learning as a whole, like as we start episodes, I was like, just tell me about yourself. Like that way, people know where you're coming from and your history with wrestling, because then we all have different perspectives. So, it's always fascinating to see like where you started, where you've been, and just what your thoughts are, because then you never know when you're going to connect with somebody like that, which us as broadcasters, we don't get to talk about our stories because it's not about our stories. Our stories don't matter, so to speak, to the viewer, because they're there for the action and we're there to voice the action. They don't really know our pasts and everything. So I was like hearing, pasts about all this stuff. I'm excited to have Brad on because I feel like he's going to go on for 40 minutes talking about himself before we start talking about the movie. but hopefully that's the next episode. That's the one I'm trying to lock down before the year's over. But yeah, no, thank you so much for your time to be on here and just talk to me and, tell more about your story, because I think this is like the deepest dive we've done into who you are, just us chatting and stuff. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thanks for the opportunity here, and looking forward to being on a future episode. Again,
Gary Albright.
Gary Albright.
It's on the calendar.
Mark it down.
Hell yeah. So before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to plug or anything you want to
you can find me on socials. I'm like the old fuddy-duddy, so it's hit or miss. And when I post stuff and do stuff, but you can follow me on socials at Wrestle Russo. Used to be at Shoot Russo, because I am the real deal Russo, but I just was afraid non-wrestling people would look at it and go,
yeah,
not great. So yeah, it's at Wrestle Russo. Otherwise, I'm on the A Show, Platinum, the A Show.
We'll edit that out.
Platinum with Brad and Carolina T on Reality Wrestling. You can find us every Saturday in Houston on Channel 39 CW, and of course on YouTube. And by all means, if you watch this and you're curious, and if I can provide you any more tips and tricks and feedback and whatever, happy to be here, happy to help and do what I can, because again, I'm all about trying to give back.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Russo, for all the time. And I'll make sure to edit out that Platinum A Show stuff where everybody knows it's glory.
A Show?
But yeah, this has been the Missed Retrospective. We'll see you guys next week with another episode. I'm trying to get Brad. I promise. That man is really hard to lock down.
Into the ether so
I'm just putting it out there because I've been trying since day one.
All right.
And this is episode 13, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just like I'm trying to get him. I almost got him last night, but he's a busy dude, so I fully get it. And if I can do the year-end episode, which is the 12/31 with Brad for Back to the Future, that's like the dream. So there you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Now you guys know exactly what movie I'm going to do with Brad, because I haven't put it out there on video yet. But now it's out there. So thank you so much for watching the Missed Retrospective, and we will see you on the next one.